Speaking of the nuclear situation, real quick, things are heating up with Israel and Iran. Israel talked about preemptive strikes of the Iranians' nuclear facilities, and well, folks, watch out for those crazy Zionists with nukes. I tell you what, if you're afraid of Iran having nukes, well, please, if Israel, the country that has nukes and is looking, there was another story I posted on our website to have even more capabilities. So not only can nobody else even have nuclear power, but they want as many capabilities to blow up that region as possible. Okay.
And that's why, I think it's why you mention it with the segue, because that's all connected to the church. It's all, it's that suicide pact, because God
Yep.
said they're, the chosen people, then we have to be connected to them, and because we're going to make this thing happen. Because this book
Exactly.
that we say, oh well, it's at least this King's version of it that we read that doesn't include the weird books that have stuff about giants and aliens and all that stuff. We had to cut that crap out of there. You look at all that and go, oh well, it's all prophesied to be. So we're going to work towards making that happen. If it's God's will and it's all meant to be, what difference does it make what I do? And it's all going to go along down that path. That
Yeah.
was my
I hate
question
that
as a little
attitude.
kid.
I hate that attitude because it's so, and that's why I'm an activist because I feel the opposite of saying, oh, just worry about the afterlife and blah 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 and just accept the God, because that is what they want,
Hmm.
whoever they may be. They want you to be complacent, or what's the right word here? That they want you to be just okay with it and accepting and apathetic. And that's feeding into them. The powers that shouldn't be have used religion for many, many
Hmm.
years as a tool to manipulate the masses. First was religion, and then they realized they could use that for political means. Okay,
Hmm.
um, and then even before religion was the politicians uh, that were able to manipulate people through these spooky things that they understood, like you were saying.
Hmm.
And then that kind of turned into a whole religious based, and then later again political based, as I mentioned. And speaking of religion and the church and all these things, while we're on this
Hmm.
tangent, since we've talked last month, the Vatican has come out with some interesting stories.
Oh,
Yeah, and
that's
I'm going to have Santos Bonacci on tomorrow, and then Greg Zizmansky next week, both who are very much interested in chatting about the Vatican. I'll let you take some of those stories. I'm sure you had heard about their call for a World Bank.
their call for, a world financial institution, which, most even mainstream media outlets said, which really mirrored a lot of the points of the Occupy movements, which is like, oh, wow, what a coincidence. So funny that the organized religion and this organized protest are arguing for the same thing. What are the odds of that? I think with all of that, we've seen a bunch of moves with the Catholic Church where they're saying it's okay to believe in aliens. I'd baptize an alien if they were real. We've set up our Lucifer telescope in Arizona to look for aliens. All of that stuff, and now we see all the moves on the Zionism front, and we see that UNESCO has granted Palestine membership, and now we see Israel, racing forward with settlements in the sort of reaction to this. But when it's like, oh yeah, one, you say, yeah, Palestinians should have a vote and a state in all of these, grand chessboard situations. But then you see it's UNESCO, and it's like, oh, but that's Julian Huxley and the elites and the eugenics. I'm trying to think of what the appropriate analogy would be to that of, the U.S. won't fund UNESCO if they add Palestine, but it's all of the, it's these elite connected organizations and outlets, playing ends, playing both ends against the middle or any kind of situation.
Yeah, here's another story from the Vatican. Occupy the Vatican, an interesting movement that has arose from all these Occupy movements. Anyways, this group in Vancouver, I'm sure Reverend Kevin Annette is involved, if it's in Vancouver and it has to do with the Vatican, who's been on the show. Do you know Kevin, by the way?
I do not.
You got to check out his stuff. He has Hidden from History. He talks about the genocide of the Aborigines that the
Mm.
Catholic Church was very much involved with in Canada. But anyways, they've served eviction notices against the child raping church as the Canadian media distorts the
Hmm.
event. Interesting story here at the intelhub.com. You see these activists going to the Vancouver branch of the Catholic Church demanding justice. There's so many things that we could occupy here. Since they've played this game, occupy this, occupy yourself. An article, by the way, we posted early
Mm-hmm.
on. Occupy the skies, take the chemtrails out, occupy whatever.
Well, and there's a
I'm
lot of
just
moves
having a field day.
on occupying Bank of America, and there were zombies that were
Yeah.
arrested at Bank of America, and
Yeah, they
similar
wouldn't let
situations.
them close down their account.
We had everyone's favorite Michael Moore was in Portland here just a couple days ago, who came to kind of rally the troops and say,
Michael
Portland,
Moore?
Michael Moore was in Portland, Oregon. His handler, Ari Emanuel, yeah, he let him come here to Portland and tell
Is
us.
Ari Emanuel his handler?
Ari Emanuel's his agent. So
He's
that's the question
uh,
for me. It's like, do you think Michael Moore, with high power, one of the most high-powered Hollywood agents, which is portrayed by Jeremy
Ari
Piven
in
in
the
Entourage.
Entourage, yeah.
But it's, Ari Emanuel. It's Rahm Emanuel's brother. They're both the sons of Irgun terrorist, and one's the mayor of Chicagoland now, and the other's, one of the most high-powered Hollywood agents. Do you really think he would let his client go on TV and, do something that was really going to shock the system and bring down this system? He's playing a part. Yeah, I think he did actually admit that, Michael, yeah, I am part of the 1%, which of course he is. But we had I mentioned the Bank of America, those kind of Occupy situations. And the situation here in Portland, as I think it's happening in a lot of cities, all the street people, all the people who should get medical and mental evaluations, and all the other street people who need to be taken care of, they're of course all gravitating towards the Occupy camps because it's at least a
Oh yeah.
more collective of people. And there have been arrests in Portland where they're going into these camps, which are legal, and our city and Mayor Sam Adams and everybody has pretty much been like, okay, these two encampments are fine, people can stay at these two, and it's been a pretty so far chill situation as far as any kind of bad crap. But they've had to go in and arrest, there was this guy, who's, exposing himself, and this other dude, he's a registered sex offender. This other guy was being combative, and so that kind of element is starting to filter in, unfortunately.
In New York, James, I read a story where the cooks were on strike, or were going to go on strike. And you want to know why? This is kind of funny. They finally got pissed off that all the homeless people were eating all of their organic goodies. In New York, the Occupy protests have been catered with organic brown rice and organic veggies, fajitas, and I was looking at the menu. I was quite impressed.
Huh.
They don't
So
mess around.
here's
So
here's the no, I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, I was just going to finish in saying that it's interesting because, like you were saying, all the street people tend to gravitate towards that. And I was like, wow, I mean, it's what a contradiction here. Let's feed ourselves all the good stuff. And half these people are the first ones to say, how dare you mistreat the homeless? How dare you do all this? But no, don't eat our own food. Don't eat our own organic food. That's the double standard that I saw in it.
So and we're now mentioning food, so I do want to segue to
World order.
and
Let's
blast
go there.
through some of the other stuff that we have. But I just want to, just as long as we're mentioning Occupy, and now that we've brought up some of these points, maybe that's kind of the question. Is this, and again, it comes from foundations. It came from, the Ford Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation funded left gatekeeper media outlets. That's how kind of all of this began. That was the seed. Then, of course, it's the copycat effect, and everybody will kind of pile on the bandwagon, whether that's, yay, I want this team to win the Super Bowl, or yay, I want this guy to win the election. It's, yay, I want these people to do this thing. That's what they're paying attention to now, and it's again, frustrating to see, and, your coworkers and folks who, because it's the topic of conversation, they seem like they're interested in it. But
It
as
was
soon
on the
as
Daily Show.
yeah, as soon as the next thing comes along, they're not going to be thinking about it at all. But is something as part of all of this? Is it just going to be even more class warfare? among ourselves. So when you're talking about, cooks and homeless people, and then we have street kids and other, people who basically, they've been foreclosed upon. They were illegally kicked out of their homes. They lost their job because, the oligarchs sent their jobs overseas because it's all a part of this plan. But is it going to come down to kind of a class warfare situation where, imagine, maybe, I'm speculating here, folks like you and I, if we found ourselves in this situation to go, well, I'm certainly not a, multi-millionaire or the 1 or 2%, but I'm not a homeless guy on the street, and I feel like, thank whomever, and knock on wood, I'm so thankful that I am healthy and my legs work and I can have a job and I can work. So I do those things because I want to live in an apartment and I like to have hot water and some power. And so I choose to work jobs. So could we find ourselves basically in the middle of saying, of course, no, I'm not the 1%, I'm not a bankster, but I'm also not you on the street who's griping about this and that, even though you could walk in and get some crappy job. No, working for McDonald's isn't ideal, but it sure as hell beats freezing your ass off on the street.
Yeah. James, we are the 99%.
And isn't, again, the numerology, the 99%. You've got the Herman Cain 999 plan. It's it's all around there. But let me blast through some of my other related updates here, as I think we're kind of down to our less than 10 minutes.
Well, we're commercial free though, James. So if we go a little long, that's okay.
Okay. But if we
foodworldorder.com, follow this link here, folks. California Rep Spire takes food stamp challenge. Let's see how he does.
And she's not the only one. And actually, and this is Representative Jackie, I'm not sure if it's Spire or Spear, Speier. She has also done a lot of work trying to bring light to the epidemic of rape in the military, and seems, one of those, handful of good public representatives who are trying to represent their constituents and fight for things, to help people in their district.
Isn't the military's policy on rape, don't ask, don't tell?
Oh, jeez.
That was a really bad joke.
I'm going to sidestep it. California Representative Spear takes food stamp challenge. Lawmaker and other faith leaders try living on $4.50 a day like 1 in 7 Americans. A total food budget of $4.50 a day might be tough to swallow, but Congresswoman Jackie Spear out of California plans to try. Starting this past Monday, the Peninsula Democrat began a 5-day challenge to live on a food stamp budget. Our own governor did this a couple of years ago. Governor Kulongoski of Oregon took the food stamp challenge and, again, made kind of jokes about, it's like, oh, well, it'll be like college, it'll be lots of ramen. But that, again, ties into, the mass amount of food stamp roll, the dole that has increased, massively over these past few years. And again, that gets us more into the situation of having people dependent on the system that has intentionally kept them at a certain, situation.